Hello everyone! Today we are going to discuss Jeremy Harmer's book, How to Teach Writing. So let's start with chapters 1 to 4. Why learn to write? Through history, writing has remained as a minority occupation. Let's remember that although almost all human beings grow up speaking in their first language, they have to learn how to write. And it is only in the last 200 years that literacy, that is to say, being able to read and write, has been seen as a desirable skill for the whole population. Because writing before was only suitable for people from church or the state. It was afterwards that it was a suitable skill for working population since societies became industrialized. And nowadays we think of writing as a fundamental right. Let's read this interesting quote. To be deprived of the opportunity to learn to write is to be excluded from a wide range of social roles, including those associated with power and prestige. So let's remember that in the world there are some people who have no access to primary education. So 875 million illiterate people in the world, and the majority of them are women. And we also have 100 million children who have no access to education, and again the majority of them are girls. So this is the history for writing. Let's remember that in an educational context, writing is important because most exams often rely on the students' writing proficiency in order to measure their knowledge.
Now let's continue with how people write. There is a writing process. It operates with email, testing, shopping lists, compositions, theses, etc. The stage a writer goes through in order to produce something in its final written form. It is affected by content, which is subject matter, type of writing, such as shopping lists, letters, essays, reports, novels, and the medium it is written in, pen and paper, computer word files, and live chat. Also, this writing process has 4 elements, which are: first, planning. Before starting to write, try and decide what you are going to say. You can make detailed notes, isolate words, and plan in your head. Also, consider purpose. It influences type of text, language, and information. Audience, structure, formal or informal tone. And content structure. How best to sequence facts, ideas, and arguments. The second element for this writing process is drafting, the first version of a written piece. The third element of this writing process is editing or reflecting and revising. Perhaps the order of the information is not clear. The way something is written is ambiguous or confusing. Move paragraphs. Write a new introduction. Use different words. Grammatical accuracy, asks for comments and suggestions. And the final element is final version. However, the process of writing is not linear, but rather recursive. We can replan, redraft, and re-edit.
Now let's continue with the characteristics of writing. So, writing goes beyond time and space. Participants may often be general rather than individuals you can see face to face. Also, a lot of writing follows a defined discourse organization. For example, a typical English paragraph includes a topic sentence, an example, exception or further examples, and a conclusion. Certain grammatical features are not so common in written tests. For example, contracted verb forms, tag questions, and echo questions. Those are, for example, I'm really happy. You're really happy? Also, spoken language features appear when writing aims to imitate speech. And writing also has signs and symbols. For example, question marks and exclamation marks. We can also use italics or underlining to make something stand out. And since writers do not have a lot of paralinguistic devices to use, there is a need to be absolutely clear and unambiguous. Now, we know that for many years the teaching of writing focused on the product, so on the what, rather than on the process, that is the how. But remember that teachers also need to concentrate on the process. But be careful, overemphasis on process may lead us into the process trap. What's that? Overplanning can take too much time and restrict spontaneity and creativity. And there will be occasions when teachers do not have enough time to pursue a whole conscious written process. And there may be a difficulty when carrying work over from one lesson to the next. And teachers have to think about what students will accomplish.
Describing written text. For different purposes, there are different writings. Genres. The different writing constructions, such as advertisement, letters, field criticism, holiday postcards, literary fiction, and science fiction. Register the text in writing in the specific vocabulary within genres. Knowledge of genre. Understanding how different purposes are commonly expressed within a discourse community, the writing assumes the reader knows this. Without this, communication cannot succeed. And schematic knowledge. Knowledge of genre. General word knowledge. And finally, topic knowledge, which means knowing something about the subject. Differences within a genre. We can find typical text constructions. Text constructions. Literature constrains writers, imposes construction patterns that help them to express their purpose. The same happens with poetry. Individual paragraphs within a text also tend to follow set patterns. Examples of different constructions can be newspaper advertisement, formal letter of notification, newspaper headline, sonnet, holiday postcard, legal contracts, wedding invitations, cooking recipes, and car manuals. This does not stop anyone or purposely violating the genre constraints, but if that helps people write and it helps readers digest the readings.
Now, let's remember that for writing to be truly accessible, it also needs to be both cohesive and coherent. So, for cohesion, we have techniques to make sure our prose sticks together. There are two types of cohesion. The first one is lexical, which has repetition of words. So, content words are repeated. For example, when in a test you have the word grandparents twice and the word people 5 times. Another aspect of lexical cohesion is the lexical set change, which are words in the same topic area which interrelate with each other as the article progresses. So for example, we have in a test the words grandparents, daughters, sons, grandchildren, and relatives. Or in another test, the words work, employers, staff, and retired. Another type, the second type of cohesion is the grammatical one. So we have pronoun and possessive reference. We use them instead of a noun. We also have article reference, which is often used for anaphoric reference, to talk about something previously named, and for exophoric reference, to talk about something that the writer assumes as shared knowledge with the reader. We also have, for grammatical cohesion, tense agreement. If a writer is constantly changing tense, the text will not hold together in the same way. Besides, we have linkers, which are words describing text relationship of addition. So we have and, also, moreover, furthermore. Also, contrast. Words like however, on the other hand, but, yet. We also have result, so words such as therefore, consequently, and thus. And time, so we have first, then, later, after a while. And finally, for the grammatical cohesion, we have substitution and ellipsis. So, words are left out of a sentence on purpose when the meaning is still clear. So, for example, Penny was introduced to a famous author, but even before she had recognized him. In this case, we omit the unnecessary repetition of introduced to a famous author. So, remember that the second element that it is needed for a reading test to be accessible is coherence. So, it is about making sense. The test has an internal logic which the reader can follow with or without the use of prominent cohesive devices. So, the reader can understand two main things. The first one is the writer's purpose. For example, give information, suggest a course of action, make a judgment on a book or a play, or express an opinion. And the second one, the writer's line of thought. So, follow reasoning or a story and not get confused by time jumps or by too many characters, or to know what it is being described, or to follow step-by-step instructions.
Another important aspect of text construction is register. Language we use in a particular situation when communicating with a particular group of people. So, text in the same genre can be written in different registers, and it involves appropriate vocabulary for a subject matter and tone, which can be formal or informal. Remember, we don't have to tell students everything. Get them to look at 5 or 6 versions of a text. So it will be better job to identify any similarity of construction of vocabulary items that occur more than twice. Later on, students will be able to use those with their own writings. But at lower levels, such as beginners or elementary students, may not be able to analyze complete texts and then write imitations. Teachers can work on parallel writing. That is, look at a paragraph, discuss its structure and vocabulary, and finally rewrite a similar one. Also remember, overemphasis may lead us into the genre trap. Besides, genre analysis is not the only kind of writing to do. Teachers can encourage students to write about themselves, short essays, compositions, dialogues straight out of their head with no reference to genre at all.
Now, let's talk about writing in the language classroom. So, when students write, they normally have time to think. They go through dictionaries, grammar books, and other reference material. They focus on accurate language use, and they develop language as they solve problems. So in the classroom, we can have writing for language reinforcement, that is to give opportunities to remember new language better. So, ask the student to write sentences using recently learned grammar or vocabulary, or paragraphs or longer compositions to practice aspects of language construction. Besides, a story about something based on a character or event in the course book to practice, for example, past tense or physical descriptions vocabulary. We can also have preparation writing in the classroom, when students write sentences as a preamble to discussion, or write a sentence saying what their opinion is about a topic. Students can read out what they have written or use what they thought as they wrote to make their points. They can also write notes.
Activity writing. Writing as a part of large activity where the focus is on something else. Language practice, acting out, speaking, short dialogues. For example, to practice functional areas, we can use inviting or suggestions. Questionnaires type, the kind of music people like.
We can also have, in the language classroom, writing for writing, to help the students become better writers and to learn how to write in various genres using different registers. and to communicate real messages in an appropriate manner. Moreover, we have writing purposes. We should have a writing aimed and a view to achieving the aim. Real messages for real audiences and tasks that occur in real life. And another very important aspect is the reason why students are studying English.
Related to this, we have English as a second language. Students living in the target language community. Recent immigrants and refugees. Feel informed, write particular kind of letters, and general English development. Moreover, we have English for specific purposes. Work as a nurses, medical English. For example, write a stimulated patient record. Academic purposes, such as business students, language management and commerce. And finally, we have English as a foreign language. Study general English at schools, institutes in their own country, and transitory visitors in target language country. So, the idea is to create real purpose tasks performed at some point in life.
So, related to these purposes, we have exam writing, which are designed to discover candidates' integrative language skills, correct grammar, appropriate lexis, and coherent organization. For this, we have two types of test items, integrative and discrete, which only measure one skill. We also have creative writing, in which a task provokes students to go beyond, to take chances, and to express more personal thoughts. Write stories, poems, journals, or dramatic scenarios. Now, let's go with the tasks of the teacher in writing. There are 5. The first one is demonstration. Students need to be aware of writing conventions and genre constraints. The second task of the teacher is motivating and provoking. So, be prepared to suggest ideas to students so they don't get stuck. Exchange virtual emails, complete tasks on the board, or discuss ideas before the writing activity. The third task of you will be supporting. So, be always available, give help and reassurance. Responding. React supportively. Don't judge or grade as a finished product. Tell the students how well he has done so far. Make comments. Don't fill the test with only corrections. The last task is evaluating. To know what standard we have reached. Indicate where the students wrote well and made mistakes, and ask them to correct.
Now, let's discuss the mechanical components of writing. The first one is the handwriting challenge. Producing the shapes of English letters, such as uppercase, capital, and lowercase, not capital. And the size and positioning of individual letters in a word or text, with or without ruled lines. To teach handwriting, teachers can follow a two-stage approach. The first stage is recognition. Students can recognize specific letters within a sequence of letters. They can recognize specific strings of letters. And the second stage is production, learning which direction the writing follows, where to position the letters on lines. And finally, then forming joined up words.
Another mechanical component of writing is spelling, which has its own challenge. Let's remember that English lacks of spelling sound correspondence. Same sounds can be spelled differently. Those are homophones. For example, through, sun, sun. You already know the spelling. Or same spelling can be pronounced differently. And there are rules and exceptions. And we also have word roots and affixes. So, how can we teach spelling? You can have students read as much as possible and help them remember rules and exceptions, but remember to get them to work out their own spelling rules. We also have teaching punctuation. So remember, capital letters, commas, full stops, and sentence and paragraph boundaries. Those are important aspects. We also have, as a mechanical component, coping. So some students have an inability to notice key features of spelling. Remember that. They may have a difficulty with attention to detail. So, you can provide activities to practice. For example, these guys were copying from the board, making notes, or whisper writing. And our final component is sentence, paragraph, and test. When you put words together, we have parallel writing, which consists of sentence production, paired sentences, paragraph construction, control test construction, or free test construction when you move to creative writing. So those are the main aspects.
Now let's move to chapters 5 and 6 from Jeremy Harmer's book, Building the Writing Habit. Please help me to read this quote. Being at the beginning, the king said very greatly, and go on till you come to the end, then stop. From Alice's Adventure in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Teachers have to building confidence and enthusiasm first in order to create a writing habit. With the students who lack familiarity or confidence when writing, teachers need to spend some time building the habit. Even with the students who like and enjoy writing, it is crucial to make an effort when building a habit due to writing in a foreign language make them feel like aliens. So the duties for teachers are making students feel comfortable, gaining their willing participation, and choosing the right kinds of activities. Provoking students with enough language and information allows them to complete writing tasks successfully. Students need information. Students need to understand clearly what teacher wants them to do. Moreover, they need to be absolutely clear about any of the topic details that we given them. Language. Students need specific language to complete a writing task. Teachers need to give to them. This may involve offering them phrases, part of sentences, or words. Ideas. Teachers need to be able to suggest ideas to help students when get stuck. A good writing teacher is to be able to throw out suggestions without crowding out individual students with too much oppressive details. And finally, students need patterns and schemes. Students usually think they do not have many ideas. Teachers can give them a pattern or a scheme to follow. It makes easier students' lives. However, giving a frame to write makes the task less creatively, and it does not offer the writing support. Tasks whose principal aim is to have students writing fluently and enthusiastically, often with more spontaneity and less actual preparation than in process and general approaches. Two such areas of habit building are
instant writing. This is a stage in any lesson where students can be asked to write on the spot without much in the way of preparation or warning. You can use it with music, pictures, sentences, or poems. Those are options for you. The other strategy to create a writing habit is collaborative writing. It allows students to learn from each other. It gives each member of the collaboration access to others' minds and knowledge. This kind of writing allows students to have a sense of shared goals, which can be very motivating. And inside this collaborative writing, we have writing to each other, a further way of provoking students' engagement with writing. Students correspond with people outside the class. Songwriting, when done in this way, becomes genuinely communicative and has a real purpose. Usually, it is basic levels. Remember, it goes a lot further than write down words on paper.
But what happens when the writing habit is already built? Teachers can give students engaging writing tasks that will help become fluent writers. The result of this is to let students enjoy writing. Teachers need to be able to help students enjoy their work and take pride in it. At the same time, use what they have produced for correction without destroying their positive atmosphere. So, the point is that if it is this balance between appropriate acknowledgement and language improvement, the writing habit is already done. Now, let's talk about process and genre. Given that writing is a process that what we write is often heavily influenced by the constraints of genres, then these elements have to be able present in learning activities in order to encourage students to build a writing habit. Furthermore, these activities frequently stimulate spoke communication. To work with process and genre, we need to bear in mind three main steps. The first one is generating ideas. Writers need time to generate ideas and to plan what they are going to write. Teachers have to give opportunities to the students, especially if they are going to write a formal writing task. The second step is analyzing genre. When students are writing within a recognized genre, they will benefit from the first analysis that genre before reading it. That analysis of genre was already mentioned in the first part of this video. And the third step of this process and genre is making a plan. Generating ideas and analyze genre are all part of the planning process, but they are all of course different from the act of making a point itself. Here, students decide what order to put their ideas and how best to present the information. To help create an overall design of the text, students have to make crucial decisions. For example, who they are writing for, the purpose, and the organization of the piece of writing. So, you as a teacher can suggest some ways to do that. For example, for engaged columns, board field, main ideas magnet, paper in a hat. So, things can change. That in the drafting and editing process, maybe they reorder or attach themselves to different headings. So, be aware of that.
Now, let's continue with the chapters 7 and 8 from Jeremy Harmer's book. Ways of reacting to students' writing. The first way is responding. We are entering into a kind of effective dialogue in which we discuss their writing rather than judge it. Therefore, we might ask, why did you start the story about the bus that was late? Or, why did you finish the story with the dog being alone? Ways of responding in students' work. Responding to work in progress. Do not say, I wouldn't do it like that, I would do it like this instead. Or, what do you want the reader to understand here? Other ways are responding by written comment, post-tag statements, and if you can't give face-to-face feedback, try to tabbed comments, also electronic comments, and peer review. Now let's see the other way of reacting to students' work. Correcting. Ways of correcting students' work. Selective correction. In this, we correct only one aspect, spelling, grammar, or tenses, for example. Using marking scales. In this, we grade each aspect individually. Using correction symbols as wrong word, spelling, tenses, or punctuation. Then we have reformulation. In this, teacher shows how he would write the wrong sentence to make the students learn by comparing. Other ways are referring students to a grammar book, ask me, or if same mistake is committed by the whole class, you might teach it and correct it to the whole group. That is remedial teaching. Roles of the teacher. Examiner. gives objective evaluation for students' performance. Audience responds to the ideas and perceptions that students have written about. Assistant helps students along. Resource is available when students need information or guidance. Evaluator says how well things are going so far. Editor helps to select and rearrange pieces of writing. Training students to self-edit and self-correct. Finding mistakes. We could have students to identify wrong sentences. Then we could let them correct them. Error checklist. A checklist can be constructed and handed to students to encourage to do it with care. The teacher can change the error checklist depending on the particular errors that the class has been made. Understanding correction symbols, lines and symbols. In this, we let students know which mistake they have made and where. Underline with no symbol. We underline the mistake but put no symbol. Margin symbol. We put a margin and a symbol. Margin marks. We put marks and margin. One margin mark. At the end of the sentence, we put one margin mark. Making homework successful. It is important to have this time because students can study on their own. However, teacher might consider time in order to equilibrate homework load. Also, homework must be appropriate to engage students' attention so that they consider the tasks helpful. Also, explain the marking criteria and consider punctuality to make the process fair and clear. Journals and letters. Journal writing is a genre in its own right, but in that genre authors are at liberty to impose their own idiosyncratic style on their writing, since their primary audience is, after all, themselves. Difference between journals and letters. Whereas journals encourage introspection and reflection because students are essentially writing to and for themselves, letters are written to someone, thus they can gain indirect power. On the other hand, journal writing is easy to consider as part of learning and writing process, while letter writing is a more voluntary procedure which is difficult to insist upon in the same way. Journal writing benefits. The value of reflection. Journals provide an opportunity for students to think about how and what they are learning. Freedom of expression. Journals allow students to express feelings more freely and openly than they might do in class. Developing writing skills. Journals can promote the learner's autonomy in writing. In addition, it can expand the range of written expression and write with greater ease and speed. Presenters. Tatiana Gomez. Christian Navarro. Vivian Tarazona.